Welcome back to this week's episode of The Follow-Up, where we recap this week's sermon so you can grow deeper in your relationship with Jesus. Today we are diving into John chapter 6 with Pastor Bill, Pastor Jack, and Pastor Arlen. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to The Follow-Up, and we are here with Pastor Jack, and we have Pastor Arlen, who is kind of just sitting in this week. I'm excited for this.
And on his birthday.
Yes. On his birthday. Happy birthday, Pastor Arlen.
Thank you. Thank you.
People can send gifts, and no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's why you guys brought me in. It's a birthday present. Yeah.
Well, actually, we needed to balance the room of the beards.
Yes.
With smooth face in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
we could lend you some beard.
That's okay. That's all right. I'm good. Bald is beautiful.
So this week we our sermon was on John chapter 6. Mm-hmm. And so there was really two stories that were part of John chapter 6, two major stories in the life of Jesus.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows these. These are like the miracles where if you think about Jesus and miracles, a lot of times people will go to healing. Mm-hmm. Those are big, but then these two are really big. So Jesus feeds the 5,000, and then he basically walks on water and calms the sea. So those are kind of the two pieces we're talking about. Jack, I'm curious, as you were studying and getting ready for this, what were the things that were like just flashing lights of like, oh, we need to talk about this?
The fact that the water into wine, water into wine, that was a good one too.
That was a good one.
But the multiplying of the bread and the fish was so visible and so public. Mm-hmm. The water into wine, nobody else knew. You know, John is quick to say that. Mm-hmm. Miracles were one-offs in smaller villages. This is a large group of people all going to the Passover. Like this isn't something that can be hidden.
Right.
People see what's going, and they're there to see Jesus, so they know he's kind of like center of attention.
Yeah,
that was just big for me. I mentioned this in my message, but even a lot of liberal theologians will say, like, if you see something in all four Gospels, it's most likely to have happened. If you see it in one Gospel, they'll water it down, maybe two. Right. Mm-hmm. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all record that this happened. Yeah. So this is a bold statement to all four of them. It is verified within the early church because all four have been like, you remember when, like if two of us talked about an event, the third one may not have been there. Mm-hmm. But when all three of us are talking about an event, no, we were there. We saw what happened. We can explain it. We're bouncing it off each other. All the gospel writers are speaking on it.
Yeah.
And it also stands out to me because of, once again, this is kind of the conservative, moderate, liberal stance, but Thomas Jefferson took this completely out of his Bible. You know, a very humanistic way to approach it. I was reading one commentary this week, and they were back quoting some in history, and they're like, well, what actually happened is because the boy was generous, everyone decided to be generous, and that's how they had enough food for everyone. And it's like, well, then how did they have 12 baskets of extra?
Yeah.
You know, there's so much that you'd have to choose to ignore to make these side stories even possible. Mm-hmm. That's why that one stands out big time for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. The emphasis of that it was very public.
Yeah.
And we do see that in the Gospels often. Jesus is doing these miracles and then it's like, don't tell anyone. Mm-hmm. And so it's like interesting that this one is so public. Arlen, when you think about that story in particular, the multitude, mm-hmm. what are the like initial thoughts that come to mind? Like if someone were to say, like, tell me about Jesus feeding the multitude, what do you think about?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and you guys both touched on it, I love that it's more than 5,000, right? We read 5,000, but it's 5,000 men, right? Yeah. And women and children weren't often counted within that, so it's anywhere from like 10 to 15,000 people that he's actually, so it just makes that story even just greater and awesome. I also love that his first reaction was be like, hey, Philip, how are we going to do this, right? I think that is great. There's a lot to learn in that, right? As Phillips, right? Where we see something coming, we get nervous. Yeah. And God often is challenging us like, hey, are you going to trust me in this? How are we going to do this? And he had a plan the entire time. It's not like he was like, oh no, Philip, how do we do this? Yeah. He knew what he was going to do. He just wanted Philip to be engaged in what he was getting ready to do.
So I love that. And then think about this. So it's John knew that Jesus knew. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if this is where I read. I wonder if Jesus is like, watch this. Hey, Philip, what are we going to do about this? John's like totally on the side, like in the know on what's going to happen. Or if Jesus told him later, I totally played him. I knew what I was going to do. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it actually shows Jesus' heart as a rabbi.
Yeah.
Like rabbis weren't there to always give you every answer.
Right.
Or to tell you exactly what was going to happen or do.
Yep.
They were there to kind of like lead you down this path. And I think that's what Jesus is doing there is he asked that question of Philip because he knows what's going to happen. And I think later he wants the disciples to remember these things and to realize, wow, Jesus was doing these things intentionally. Like even him later putting them in the boat. Like the other gospels share that Jesus told them to go ahead. Mm-hmm. You know, John's gospel says they just went down to the boat, but the other gospels say, you know, go down to the boat and go ahead of me. Yeah. And so it's like, Jesus knew the storm was coming. Jesus knew that he knew what he was going to do with the bread. He was always following the will of the Father, always staying connected. So he knew all of these things were coming. It's like, but what lesson is he teaching?
Yeah, it's a great point because it is so rabbinical to ask the question. Mm-hmm. That was their primary form of teaching.
Right.
Not just written question on a test, not word question, but like, how do you live this out in real time? So that's good.
I get super fascinated, and maybe it's because like I'm a Bible nerd a little bit. I always say that, like Ryan and I, whenever we're talking, I'm like, we're such Bible nerds. It's so funny. But and I think we all kind of have that as pastors. Yep. But I get like really obsessed with like trying to imagine the mechanics of how these things happen. You know, like okay, so what is happening in physical reality when Jesus is multiplying? Like if scientists were to like document it, what would be happening? Like, is he like taking bread and breaking it and then handing it and then the bread regenerates? Or like, how is he multiplying? Or is he like praying over a basket and it fills up? Like, I just want to know like more details. Like, why don't you guys say these things in scripture?
And once again, it was verifiable by 4.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, some people will be like, oh, it's only by one gospel or it was a hearsay. But like what did it look like? What did it look like Jesus walking up to the boat? Right. Like how far in the distance was he when they were like, oh, snap, what's that? You know?
Yeah.
You actually sent me that message about kind of that Grim Reaper figure.
Yes.
Like what you had been reading. I leaned into that because it's hard enough being in a storm and darkness and a bunch of guys who are working after being exhausted from working all day. And then how far out are you going, what is that? You know, and then how close does it get to the boat before you realize what it is, who it is? And that's why I love when John said, and I played with this a little bit too, and then they let him in the boat. Like how long did they fight letting him in the boat?
Yeah.
So
were they terrified, nervous? Yeah. You leaned into the frightened aspect.
Yeah, yep.
And I appreciated that. Like, hey, there probably was a real sense of fear of what was going on. Like, here's this dude walking on water. It's dark. I don't know what's going on. And here's this figure coming up. That would scare anybody, right? That would make you freak out and be nervous. And then you're like, row, go faster, try and get away. And but just to also at the same point though, probably the comfort when they realized who it was. Yeah. Right. Then when they got in and they're like, oh my gosh, it's Jesus. And so then we're going to let him in. But they were terrified of what was happening.
Mind blown.
Yeah. Jesus walking on the water. We always, like when I think about that story outside of the context, I'm like, oh, it was just so cool. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like awesome to see, like, is he like surrounded by light walking on water? And like, is he just like, you know, it looks like he's just strolling along there. You know, it says they were 2 to 3 miles out. So like, how long is Jesus walking? How long does it take you to walk 2 to 3 miles? Yeah. You know, or did Jesus like teleport close to them and then start walking on the water? I don't know. I'm like super obsessed with these details that scripture don't provide for us. But I think the point is to share like that the disciples are firsthand witnesses of these amazing things that Jesus can do. Yeah. Like no wonder, right? Like no wonder after he is resurrected and they realize and they think back, no wonder they're willing to go to their deaths for Jesus, because who's going to tell them that this isn't the Son of God when they've seen him walk on the water, when they've seen him multiply the bread, when they've seen the healings, they've seen all of these things.
And now the body's not there.
Right.
You know, and now there's a resurrected body.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's an element of faith woven within that, right? Because then they have to start telling these stories to other people. Like when I was walking with him, this happened, and then people have to choose to either believe that it happened or not. And there's just faith rooted all throughout that, almost like Jesus knew what he was doing, right? When he was here and was moving and operating. Even with the 5,000, the 10 to 15,000 people that were fed, nobody can tell them you didn't get fed that day.
Yeah,
right? They were all like, no, I did. And in fact, I went home more full than I'd ever been in my life.
Yes.
Right? We had leftovers for the first time in a long time. And so that there was so many public eyewitnesses, but then these smaller things, they all just kind of work hand in hand to prove that Jesus is who he says he is.
I'm in Acts right now, my personal quiet times. And you read the beginning of Acts, and it's always, they went back through the scriptures, or they walked through the events of Jesus, or didn't our hearts burn within us as he was talking to us? It's the reflecting back. I'm determined you don't realize, a lot of times in life, you don't realize you're in the miracle until you can look back and go, oh my goodness, only the Lord. We had a baptism service. You were there very early on. Outside, because the tank had leaked in the church. You remember we're cleaning up like after midnight.
Yep.
Our Baptacuzzi sprung a leak.
Yep.
So we had to clean it up after midnight, set it up outside. Didn't know what we were going to do. Smoke got out there, and all these people just start coming off the hill to be baptized, like in their church clothes.
Yep.
It was a surreal moment. And I swear to you, the only thing I could think in the moment was, we're going to run out of towels. We're not going to have enough towels. Like how are we going to have enough towels for all these people who want to be baptized? And we have another baptism service after. And you look back at how many people's lives were changed, and how many people, including one of our lead elders now, who on that Sunday in the church clothes that he showed up in said, I need to be baptized. And it's not until I looked back that I go, wow, God moved in people's hearts.
Yeah.
I see the same thing so many times where the work that goes into it, I think sometimes blinds us to the work that God is doing in it.
Oh, yeah. So that's a great point.
It's just a lot to it.
Yeah, I shared a story within the sermon about, and I think I told you this when we were preparing.
Your testimony.
About my testimony.
Oh, yeah.
When I was 18, and just like how terrible I did. Like I was, and I really truly believe that God allowed that whole thing to happen, because I had to realize going into ministry that it's not about me. It's not about how well I can do something. Now, of course, we need to be good stewards of our story.
Yeah.
Like we should prepare, right? Like we should always be prepared to give an answer. It's not an excuse to be terrible at ministry and to do and to like share our faith with people. But I think where I was at the time as a young man, it wasn't about the prep. I could have prepped and prepped, but it was like standing up in front of people the first time that really like threw me for a loop. And so I think God allowed me to see, look, at even when you are super weak and ineffective, and even when you are incoherent, I can actually take the little bit of faith that it took you to share your testimony with people, and I can use that to save people. Like I can use that and the Holy Spirit to draw people to myself. And that lesson has stood with me the entire time in ministry. Like there are so many times where, and I'm sure you guys feel this way too, like there's so many times where you feel going into a situation that you're, I don't know what the word is, maybe inadequate or weak in this area. And then God chooses to use it anyway. And I think that's such a great lesson for us.
For sure. I really appreciate you guys' sermon title, With or Without You.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I was first getting trained in ministry, I got told, God's going to do what he's going to do with or without you, right? Like you have to decide right now what you're going to do. Are you going to be faithful? Are you going to actually do that? So when I hear that story, it's just a kid saying, I'm going to try, right? Like I'm just going to do what the Lord's asked me to do. I'm going to give it my all. And then I'm going to trust that he's going to do something on the back end with that. And that makes me want to work hard, because I just know the things I can't control are going to be controlled by the Lord. And I'm just going to give my best and do that, because God is going to do it with or without me. And I just have a beautiful opportunity before me to get to serve him.
I have always in slow reading classes in school, reading disability type stuff. So what does God have me do for a living but read in front of people? It's just one of those, what's the little that I put in your hand? perfect. Let me use it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's it. Like little as much when God is in it. You know, don't despise. I love Zechariah. Little as much. Don't despise humble beginnings. It's just those, lean into those things. When I'm weak, he's strong.
Yeah.
And we all have strengths and weaknesses, but man, we want to rely on our strengths, and God is saying, let me work with that weakness you got right now.
Yeah. Well, one of the last things that I wanted to like key in on and talk about is I think there's such a great parallel in the story of the disciples in the boat where they've been rowing all night. They're 2 to 3 miles out and they're not getting to the other shore yet, right? They're just like trying to stay upright essentially in this lake as this storm is blowing in. And then Jesus comes, they invite him into the boat, and it says immediately they're at the shore and the storm is calmed. And so I think there's a really great parallel there for us as we strive in different areas of our life where we're experiencing, pushback or things aren't working okay. And it's like so clear to me, like invite Jesus into the boat, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, what would you say to people right now who are really struggling with some area of their life and they feel like they're rowing and they're not getting anywhere?
I'll tell you, I wrote Adam after Saturday night and I was like, hey, give me some feedback. There's some things I felt that connected, some things I didn't. And one of the things Adam said, and I wordsmithed it a little bit because it was just a loose conversation, was there's some of us creating our own storms. Like if we're rebelling against God, we know what he's called us to do, but we're fighting it or we're scared of it or we're just like keeping him at distant. Man, we're keeping him out of the boat in the storm. And then we're so understand and why doesn't God? And what if he would just, it's like, no, let him in the boat. So the first thing I would say is there's a piece for some who may be watching for believer or unbeliever. It's like, are we being obedient?
Right.
Are we being obedient? Is there something we're supposed to be dealing with? Is there supposed to be something we're leaving alone? Let him in the boat. And it's amazing how much, for me, sometimes tough conversations or things I need to deal with, how much the waters will calm. Once I'll listen, pray about it, get peace about taking the next step, and then take it.
Yeah. I like that. I didn't think about that aspect. I was thinking about more like you're in trouble and you need Jesus.
Yeah.
But we sometimes, I like that point, it takes it a little bit deeper, is we create our own trouble often. And so inviting Jesus into the boat may look like obedience for us.
And that's not an outside source. Like the storm for them was an outside thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is also, going to your point, symbolically, we can look at it and go, I'm kind of creating this wave. Like I'm paddling right into this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, I would say, so one scripture I always go to is Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. I go to that so much because what a wonderful thing that I have at my fingertips to say, God, I don't know this. I genuinely don't know. And I think sometimes we create waves when we try and know, right? When we try and tell ourselves we know, and we use our own understanding on something and we just get it wrong. I think that to say, okay, this is a situation that's beyond me. I don't have the answer here, to be honest with that, and to say, well, where can I find it, right? You can find it in scripture, you can find it in prayer, and you can find it talking to other people who have walked it and who have walked it with the Lord. And so you can start using resources that he's given you, and you can start listening. One thing I love that you said is sometimes prayer and then work, right? Yeah. You pray for an oak tree and they give you an acorn, plant the tree and do the work and use what God's given you. Yeah. God's given us his word, an opportunity to pray, and then believers who have walked through some of these things too. And so I would say to find God's understanding and to invite him in the boat means walk the walk. Yeah. Talk to people and seek what he has to say in those things. And we've talked about it. I'm a huge fan of mentorship and getting to learn from other people. And that is one way that it keeps you from creating storms, or you can comment by just using the resources God's given you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I think the other piece for me is I want to cut down the time it takes me to invite Jesus into the boat. Because I think eventually a lot of us, like if we follow Jesus long enough or we've grown in that area of our lives, eventually we're like, okay, I've done is all I can do. Now I'm going to invite Jesus to the boat. And I think for me, what I would say is cut down that time. Like if you start struggling with something or you feel like you're hitting a wall, like you should have already invited Jesus into this situation, whether it's something to do with your marriage or your kids or your work or whatever it is. It's like, did you, on the outset of this issue, are you inviting Jesus in? Are you going to all the resources he's given you, like you just said? Are you checking your obedience to Jesus? Like, cut down the time before, you don't have to bang your head against the wall for months before you invite Jesus into the boat.
So the big struggle, I'll speak for me. I'm really good at inviting him into the boat and then kicking him out. I'm like, I had one recently where it was a conversation where I had gotten peace with this person. Man, then something stirs up and then it's like you just pick it up all over again. It's like you just paddle right back in. You know? So I don't know.
I feel like my wife Erica is famous for saying, "Well, did you pray about that?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "You're right."
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes we're asked to do things we just don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
We're asked to do things that make us scared or nervous or make us angry or challenge who we've been, or it just tells us to be more obedient as Christians. And then we get mad and we're like, well, get back out, you know? And that's, it's a cyclical thing. And so invite them in and keep them in. Keep them in.
Buckle in.
Hold on.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Do you have anything else you want to add about?
No, I'm good. It's a fun message. I'm not kidding when I say Wednesday, you and I talked about this. Wednesday, I was like behind. So I went to a little coffee shop and I was reading. And as I just let the story come to life for me. And as I read, I'm a visual learner, so I can kind of picture things going on. I'm laughing. I'm like sitting in this coffee shop laughing by myself, picturing Jesus approaching the boat. And then and there's the fear aspect, but it's almost comical when they're like, they don't let him in the boat at first, and then they finally let him in, and then they get where they're supposed to go. And then how do you relay this story? How do you be that boy who gives his little, government bread, barley bread, the cheapest bread you can get, and a couple of fish? Did you eat your lunch, Johnny? Most of it. Why didn't you finish? Okay, give me the leftovers. And there's like 12 baskets of moving. So I don't know. For me, these are the moments where you look at it and you go, okay, Lord, you've done it before. You're still doing it, whether in as grand a scope or a small scope, you're still God in these. You were God before this situation. You're God in the situation. You're God after the situation. I can walk and live this out. For me, it just comes to life that way.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
I just think Jesus is cool. Right? Like, you read these stories and it's like, this is awesome, right? To feed 15,000 people with 2 anchovies and a few
Dude, no wonder they want to make him king.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, anyway.
So I just think it's awesome. I think reading these stories, reading them with awe, right? Like coming to him.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah, and just, oh my gosh, this is the same God who spoke everything into creation, the same God who's holding the fabric of reality together.
Yes.
And now he's feeding all of these people, and I get humbled often because I'm like, man, I'm worried if he's going to take care of me tomorrow, right? Like he's holding everything together, and I've read a story of him caring for 15,000 people, and feeding them, and I think coming to it with a sense of awe and saying, Jesus, you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
What an amazing God we get to serve.
Yep. Yeah, I have really loved in preaching through this together as a team. I have loved actually seeing the progression of all of these things. And what I love about the progression of where this is going, this little teaser for this weekend, is that Jesus does these things. They want to make him king and he slips away, but then he does the next miracle, which is him walking on water, calming the sea. And now we're going to get to a part in the end of chapter 6 into chapter 7 where Jesus gives some really hard teaching. Yeah. And these people who have witnessed Jesus' power are like, how can we follow this guy anymore? And I just love how Jesus does the unexpected. He doesn't do what we think you should do. Right. He's not like, make me king. He's like, no, I'm always on this track of following the will of my Father. And sometimes that means my teaching is going to push people away. And I love Jesus doing the unexpected over and over again. He has a poor
marketing plan.
He does.
I mean, every time he gets a crowd and does something amazing, he's like, all right, let me thin you guys out.
Yes.
Eat my flesh, drink my blood.
Yes.
All right, let me thin you guys out some more. It's just a constant pruning.
Yes. Yes, I love that. So tune in for next week. And thanks for being on the follow-up this week.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of The Follow-Up. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss out on an episode. And if you have any questions or have something that stood out from you from this week's episode, make sure you leave it in a comment down below, and we will see you guys next week.